Right, good evening everyone. Could I ask councillors, officers and those who have seats to please take a seat. Thank you and welcome everybody. It's great to see democracy in action tonight. I would ask you all to please now be upstanding, and I'll ask the Deputy Mayor Migdale if you could read out the opening prayer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Almighty God, we ask you to guide us in all our discussions, to show goodness, honesty, understanding and wisdom in all that we undertake to do. May we respect each other's views at all times, and we ask all of this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Councillor Dudek, could you please read the acknowledgement of country?
On behalf of councillors, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation on which this meeting is taking place, and show our respect for elders past and present.
Thank you. You can all take your seats. Please note that without prior approval, any recording of the meeting is prohibited. No action should be taken on any resolution of council prior to written advice from the city being received. Brings us to item 1, which is the official opening of the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, I declare the council meeting of the 30th of July 2024 open at 6:37 p.m. Apologies, I have nil. 3, approved leave of absence. I have an approved leave of absence for Councillor Carlo Perkoff, granted a leave from the 8th of July 24 to the 11th of August 24 inclusive, and Councillor Criado granted a leave of absence for 29th of July to 24 to the 2nd of August 24 inclusive. Disclosure of interest. There were some disclosures from the Planning and Development Committee. They're up on the board behind me. For the council meeting tonight, Councillor Damien Giudice has declared an impartial interest in item 12.1 CF1 as he works for the State Government Agency Development WA, which has previously developed Department of Community Sites. This site is not intended to be transferred to Development WA, however. Councillors, are there any other disclosures this evening? No indications. Item 5, petitions. We have nil, but I believe Councillor Thornton, you have an unverified petition to present?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I have an unverified petition. If I can just read out the preamble.
Sure
We, the
can.
residents of George Street, Stirling, are represented by George Street resident Anne Leonard at 19 George Street to present this petition to Council in addressing and highlighting of ongoing issues of excessive speeds, non-residential parking with obstructing views of residents accessing their driveways.
Thank you. And you're moving that be received. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Olo, can I just have a show of hands, councillors, to receive that petition? Councillors? Councillors? Concentrate. Good. That's unanimous. Thank you. Item 6, responses to previous questions from members of the public taken on notice, and PQT responses from the last council meeting were published in the minutes of that meeting. That brings us to item 7, which is the reason you're all here, public question time. There are quite a few questions we have received for tonight. I will start with just a quick preamble and just ask that, obviously, this is an emotive issue for all of you in the community. We do ask that you obviously show respect while asking the questions. We'll give that respect back. Make sure you listen closely for those other questions. And if you could just refer to your own questions, noting there are quite a few and we've obviously got to then deal with the item in council and there's people standing at the back. Can I just ask that you listen closely and don't repeat the same question? So if there's a question that's already been answered, and you've got that written down, maybe if you can change it to another question if you would like to ask one. That would be very helpful for all of us. I'll invite Matthew Hartley if you'd like to come up and start us off. Thank you. Just on the bottom right-hand corner, if you press a button, there'll be a red light go on, and that can just stay on now, so no one needs to touch that when you come up.
No worries.
And I just need you to start, so you have 3 questions, but if you start with just your name and suburb, that's all we need, and then your question.
Matthew Hartley from North Beach. My question relates to the development of the North Beach area. The Development Committee at the Development Committee meeting, a number of comments were made from the councillors to the effect that we should trust the department. Are you aware that the department has form in telling the community one thing and delivering something completely different? For example, the former Kinloch Primary School site in Linwood, the development advertised a plan to the community for 78 lots in support of rezoning to R30 in an otherwise R20 area. Once the rezoning had been approved and occurred, the department went ahead with Yoke Property Group and Ventura Home Group and constructed 90 lots, which was a 15% increase on what was promised and what was actually approved. So we don't quite believe the information that we've been given, and want some surety that what is said is going to actually happen.
And thank you. Look, we'll take that more as a comment, Mr. Hartley, but obviously that item is on the agenda this evening and council will take that into account. Phil Kruppe. I apologise, I haven't pronounced that right. Phil Kruppe. Welcome, and same for you, just your name and your suburb to start.
Phil Kruppe, number 6 Mumford Street in North Beach.
Yep, and just straight into your question, sir.
Just the codes, so it's going from R30 to R60. Is that the whole area or just parts of it?
Right, so I believe the whole area is up tonight. It hasn't happened yet. That is for tonight isn't the decision making either. So it's for council to then put a recommendation forward to the WAPC.
Yeah.
But it's for the whole of that site.
So I'm actually one of the houses in the development, so one of two.
Yes.
So that's why I'm asking that.
Yes, so I'll get Ms Shears to comment. I think she's been in contact.
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, that's correct. We did include those 2 lots that are part of that larger parcel. When we do rezonings like this, it makes sense to treat the whole area in the same way.
Okay. So, okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. William Dunstan. Thank you, and just your name and suburb.
Bill Dunstan, North Beach, resident, Stirling, 35 odd years. In our opinion, the proposed rezoning is inconsistent with both the state government's Perth and Peel, the 3.5 mil 2018 strategy, and the city's local planning strategy 2019, as the area is not located, in our opinion, within an identified urban corridor and not within an activity centre. If you have a look at the map, it's a long way to significant infrastructure and services. Why does the council think that it's appropriate to disregard the strategy, which was developed in concert with the community over many years? Why this should be disregarded? I'll give you a qualification with that this is being driven by the state government, and your hands probably are tied up to a point.
And look, thank you for that question. This is the Department of Communities have submitted this. Council's role is to advertise it to the community. Council so far hasn't made a decision. There's a committee recommendation to this council. So there is no rezoning at the moment. So council will certainly take your comments on board this evening.
Thank you. Second question. Given the proposed, in our opinion again, inconsistent with the local planning strategy, and again, not within an urban corridor or activity centre, can the council actually point out any recent out-of-centre proposals or approved out-of-centre developments within the city? Are there other similar situations on a similar scale that's been proposed for this that have either been approved or undertaken that we can actually see what we're in for?
Sure. Ms Shears.
Through you, Mr Mayor, thank you for your question, Mr Dunstan. I will just, in terms of the local planning strategy that you mentioned, where it nominates most of our growth occurring along activity centres and activity corridors, you're correct. However, it does say that that's 75% of our growth for infill. It does also then say 25% of our growth for infill will also be located elsewhere in the city where opportunity arises. That's why this site was considered favourably by officers. In relation to other examples across the city, our city has a number of those. One is Stockland Canopy development located in Glendalough, and also the ECU Churchlands redevelopment. They're 2 examples in the city.
Thank you. Third question. Given the continuing level of infill residential redevelopment within the city, again, partly out of your control, which shows no apparent consideration for any level of energy efficiency. We see this all the time. You know, buildings that are designed for East Anglia, 15,000 kilometres away or wherever it is, in the sunny climes of the UK, built in our sort of Mediterranean heading towards arid environment. Has the council any power at all to enforce any kind of best practice building standards that will ensure that the occupants of any development and the wider community are not saddled with additional and permanent ongoing costs that we see from substandard design and builds? And this includes, I'm dead set not against social housing here. Like a lot of other people, that's a bit of a misconception. But if this is put together badly, this is going to weigh on probably a lot of the people that can absolutely least afford to pay the price, ongoing permanent costs of really poor development. And that goes right across the whole community. If these are badly done, the energy costs, we all pay for that in additional infrastructure, at the state level that's required. That's my third and last. I have another one, but I'll give somebody else a go. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'll get Ms Shears just to comment on the, obviously it's not a consideration of tonight's meeting, but whether it was R30, R40, R60, those things are a consideration. I'll just get Ms Shears to comment on them.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Mr Dunstan, even though this is a rezoning application, when it comes time to build dwellings on the site, all dwellings are covered by the National Construction Code, which does include energy efficiency measures. Unfortunately, the city isn't able to propose alternatives to the National Construction Code. We're bound by that.
Thanks. Oh, just one further question. How old is that code? It seems to be rather outdated.
Shears?
Through you, Mr Mayor, you're testing me now. I believe it was updated in 2022, but
Okay.
I could have that year incorrect.
Thank you.
Sounds about right, Ms Shears. Yeah. Thank you. Malika Stanojevic? And just your name and suburb is all we need, and then you're welcome to start.
Hi, I'm Melissa Stunningrich, 43 Cromer Way, North Beach. In relation to the crime that we had in the area consistently, as you're aware that in 2014, when the previous grouping of only 36 dwellings was in place, North Beach was the top 9% of localities in the state for assaults against police officers. And since the 36 dwellings were demolished, the rate of recorded offences has dropped 38%. We'd like to maintain that consistency and even higher rate, please. Thank you.
Thank you. And look, we'll take that as a comment. This item doesn't deal with the crime rate, but I certainly understand the intent of your question.
Thank you. Thanks. Ta.
Thank you. Rachel Hartley? And just your name and suburb?
Rachel Hartley, North Beach. The officer's report confirms that underground water is fully utilised and there is no access capacity that can be purchased. What is it going to cost the city and therefore ratepayers to manage the additional pressure of hundreds of extra people using the unirrigated park opposite the development?
Thank you. So directly with the park itself, obviously parks are upgraded periodically depending on the usage and the desire from the community. Whilst the underground water usage is limited on councils, obviously it prioritises all those and it can be reassessed at any time. But the park itself currently is unirrigated, so that wouldn't change.
Okay.
Currently, there's no plan for it.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you. John Rowell? Thank you. Just your name and suburb?
John Rowe, 16A Sedgeford Road, North Beach. This question also relates to Sedgeford Reserve across the road. So why does the city think it's appropriate for existing residents to live with substandard and degraded public open space? Or conversely, why does it think it's appropriate that ratepayers should be left with a tab for additional impact caused by property developers, in this case, possibly the state government?
Thank you for that. Look, I wouldn't have called that one a substandard, but certainly if community have that concern, they can have that concern now without a rezoning in place, and it would be looked at, as any of our reserves in the City of Stirling would be. The lack of groundwater isn't a council decision, it's a state government implemented by the department in terms of how much we're allowed to water, and it's obviously, as you would all know in the room, Charles Riley, and reserves like that are prioritised because of the sports play in those areas. Any upgrades obviously are a mixture of rates and other funding models the city uses to upgrade those, so in any case it wouldn't matter who was living there in the future and what the zoning is. The burden would be on the council to to prioritise rates to use it to upgrade.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Fiona Maybury. Is there Fiona here? Yes. Thank you. And your name and suburb?
Fiona Maybury, North Beach. During the previous council meeting, it was stated that it was of the understanding that there'd be no additional pressure placed on the North Beach and immediate primary schools and high schools because the development was the proposed development with R60. Personnel living in such dwellings will be living in an apartment, and apartments are assumed that there'll be no children. I'd like to know how that assumption has come about, and otherwise where that information has come from, and if that same information has also been used to determine what traffic impacts there are going to be in the area, particularly during school pick-up and drop-off, which it's already a nightmare.
Thank you. And I'll get Ms Shears to comment. That certainly was an assumption this council had, that there would be no extra pressure on any services or schools, and it didn't form part of discussions at committee, I didn't think, or the decision making. Certainly schools were talked about, but there was no more pressures, but I don't think that was part of the assumption, Ms Shears.
Through you, Mr Mayor, no, the city looks at different data sets to try and forecast what the population trend might be in different areas of the city. We work with the Department of Education as well through that process. There certainly isn't any indication that the schools won't be able to cope with any influx. That's not to say there wouldn't be pressure, but it's normal for these schools to have to deal with a change in demographics through their neighbourhoods as well. In terms of your point around the traffic modelling, that's actually done on an estimate of dwellings across the site. It's not looked at in terms of number of children. Each household is allocated a rate, and that rate is multiplied by the number of trips an average household would do. So it doesn't take an account of number of children in a dwelling.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Greg Powell.
Sorry, not Greg Powell, Mark Brennan, North Beach. A few questions we're going to withdraw just in the interest of time, so we'll withdraw that one if we can. Is that okay?
Sure. Would you like to jump up while you're there?
Oh, what?
Mr.
While I'm there, why not?
There.
Thanks, everyone.
Well done on the radio too.
Thanks for listening, or obviously got a referral. My question is about, so we've spoken a bit about tonight about the studies that we've done, and you guys have come back and said, look, we feel like the studies are adequate and it's in place. The traffic one is one that really does, confuse us and highlight, we think, is a bit of a challenge there, where through your own processes, above 100 dwellings, it does require a high impact traffic assessment, and we've only done the desktop one to this point in time. So I just want to get your thoughts and feedback on that. Thanks.
Sure. I'll go over to Mr. Giamov for this one.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The state's transport impact assessment guidelines recommend that a TIA, traffic impact assessment, transport impact assessment, be prepared for a scheme amendment when that amendment will result in significant impacts or large additional demand on the transport network. And those TIA guidelines, under those guidelines, an impact is defined as significant when a proposal is expected to generate in excess of 5,000 vehicles per day or 500 vehicles during the peak hour. The proposed rezoning to R60 is expected to generate up to 900 vehicle movements or 70 to 90, that's per day, or 70 to 90 during the peak hour. So based on those guidelines, a traffic impact assessment was considered appropriate to support the proposal.
Yeah. Can I ask a quick follow-up question? Or?
Yes, yeah, you're welcome to ask another question.
Yeah, I guess this comes to the point of the disconnect that we're seeing here, is that there are some quite obvious pitch points with very short access points onto the main road. There's only 2 egress areas in that area out onto the main roads. They are only C-class roads. What our question is, the lived experience of the neighbours and the people in that area will be, once you do this development, that we will see really choked traffic, I guess. And I think it really would benefit from members and of the council to actually get out there and have a look and just see what it actually looks like on a weekend or during peak hour. 4 or 5 cars on some of these roads and it's choked. That's the very short exit points. So I'll probably just make that as a comment.
Yeah, thank you for that comment, Mr. Brennan. And I will comment, I do know that many of the councillors have been out to that area in the last week specifically to drive the area and been asked to look. So they have had a look.
Okay, good to hear. Thanks.
Thank you. Sandra Brennan?
Again, going to withdraw that one for the instance of
That's
brevity.
right.
Thank you.
Gemma Dunstan?
Also a withdrawal. Speeding along now.
Okay. Nicholas Dunstan?
Come on down.
Good.
Nicholas Dunstan, North Beach.
Thank you.
I have 2 questions. The first is that the City of Stirling local housing strategy, as we've already mentioned, states that increased density should occur in activity centres and activity corridors, and states that it does not advocate for recoding more of our low density suburbs. And I know that we've already mentioned that there is a specification that 25% can occur. But I do want to ask what kind of ramification this would have to existing residents that live in the area, and what the global or broader effects might be on the City of Stirling for residents living in other areas as well, and how they might perceive this.
Thank you. Ms Hughes?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, each application that we receive, similar to this one, is assessed on its own merits. So we would look at the impacts in terms of traffic, like we've discussed earlier. We would look at any potential built form conflicts. We would look at the character of the surrounding area. So this particular site is surrounded by R30, which may or may not agree, but it's defined in a planning terms and referred to by the state as medium density. It's not considered low density. So we would look at then access to other services. It doesn't mean to say that every single site has all of those characteristics, but we certainly try and make sure where we are adding any increase in density, that it's going to lead to an improved outcome for not only existing residents, but also those residents that might be able to live there in the future. So looking at access to shops and parks and things like that as well.
And given that we've had a few questions withdrawn, can I add a follow-on question?
You're welcome to ask more than one question.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I guess given that the surrounding nature of the area would be considered when you're shaping the particular development that you have in mind for the North Beach site, and given that if you have a look in the area, the housing surrounding that site is predominantly houses that are sitting on blocks between the size of 300 to 800 square metres, predominantly single to double storey homes with a relative absence of high density, high rise apartments. Can you give us an assurance that the existing nature of the housing in that area will somewhat resemble what will be planned for that development?
Thank you. Ms Hughes?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So tonight's application that council are considering is just a rezoning. It is quite a long, drawn-out process through the planning framework to essentially land then with a building on the site. The next step, should council, regardless of council's decision tonight, this is a decision that will be made by the state government. Should they approve it, the next step is that they have to lodge an application for what's called a local development plan. So that local development plan highlights and nominates things such as height. They did include an indicative or a draft local development plan with their application just to provide an indication of what it may look like in terms of height and access. They did indicate that it would be 2 stories around the perimeter with a potential 3rd and 4th story in the middle and on one particular corner. However, that decision on that hasn't been made, and that's not part of this evening's consideration for council. That will certainly be advertised to the community once that application comes in, and it will be considered by council in terms of a decision on that plan.
Okay, and my third question, and perhaps the Mayor can answer this, given that what we've just heard about the proposal that's been put forward for this site regarding the double-storey apartments and the 3 to 4 storey apartments that might occur centrally, and given the potential capacity for up to 300 extra dwellings in this area, and given what we've just heard, do you think that that is consistent with the existing nature of that particular area?
Well, that item is obviously on the agenda this evening for this council and myself to consider.
Yeah.
And we'll take all of those things into consideration. I certainly think the 2-storey dwellings around the perimeter are very consistent with that area and obviously interface well with that area.
Yeah.
But it's obviously up to council to decide what
then for
zoning
the
they want to see and what those built form outcomes are.
And 3 or 4 stories? with 300 dwellings.
Oh, look, that item is on the agenda. You don't want me making a decision now, surely, sir. It'll come shortly enough. I do just have to do a procedural right now and just notify I'm a bit naughty. I should have done this 5 minutes ago, but as chair, I'm just ruling that we extend public question time. We're about halfway through, so for as long as it takes to get through those further questions. And I'll ask Max Tarling if he'd like to come forward, please.
Thank you. Max Tarling, North Beach. Mine is regarding the traffic impact study that was done and the effect that it was going, the fact that it was going to have a little effect on the area with the extra vehicles coming from the project. I think when we did the study, it wasn't taken into consideration was the gentrification of the area and the demographic changes, which have been quite significant over the last 4 years. If you add that to the some 300 or 400 vehicles which will be coming from that new project, from what we're hearing, it's going to be a perfect storm, especially on Cromer Way, heading on to North Beach Road. Now, North Beach Road, when Cromer reaches North Beach Road now is very dangerous. And you only got to park there in peak hour traffic and know that some people actually get petrified about going across with the 2 lanes of traffic. So until somebody toots their horn, somebody will just sit there for a while, and then they'll toot the horn, they'll go left, go down to the roundabout at Charles Lottie Drive and go through. As there's no medium strip to get across halfway and manage the traffic both ways. And also you've got to consider that the traffic coming from Marmion Avenue and also coming from the roundabout, they're accelerating, and by the time they hit Cromer Way, they're at top speed. And so when you look at a car 100 metres away, by the time it gets to you, it's going twice as fast. So just what I'd ask the city to do when they look at the modelling for the traffic, to take those things into consideration and to have a reality check on what is actually really occurring, and to take some lived experience from the people that live in the area. Thank you.
Thank you, and obviously Council are listening to your concerns. Claudia Bertorello-Kell. Thank you. Just your name and suburb.
You did very well, Mayor.
Sure.
Claudia Bertorello-Kell, North Beach. Given that since 2021, the Department of Communities has been required to transfer all of its projects at the development stage to the for-profit Development WA, how can the council believe the department when it says its intention is for approximately 114 dwellings on this site, with an R60 zoning leaves us totally open to that real possibility of 271 dwellings? Is the council having the wool put over its eyes?
Thank you. Look, I wouldn't say the council's having the wool put over its eyes. Obviously, it's on the agenda this evening. Those facts have been put before council, minimum and maximum numbers, and they'll have to take all of those facts into consideration. The local development plan will come back to council and will be advertised to the community, and that will be the time that the dwelling numbers, etc., and the built form outcomes would be determined.
And Mayor, just as a comment, I certainly, I know I represent the community of neighbours near myself. We are not opposed to the redevelopment of this site at all. We're acutely aware of a housing shortage in the area. We have been misled at the community consultation stage. We were told 114 dwellings. We are happy to have a number around that, perhaps even up to 150 dwellings, but 270 nearly triples that initial community consultation number that was flagged with us, and we feel totally misled as a community.
Yeah, thank you, and that's been noted. Do you want to comment on the 270? I will get Ms Shears just to comment on the numbers, just for a bit more clarity.
Through you, Mr Mayor. The number of 270, I believe, came about from a deputation that was made at the committee meeting a number of weeks ago now. Under the planning framework, we have a number of dwellings that can occur quite easily, that we, I guess, essentially call them as of right. There is the ability to seek bonus elements, and if you provide, for example, gold standard accessible dwellings, you get a density bonus on your site. So that number of 271 is taking into consideration every possible bonus that is able to be granted under our planning framework. We don't see many of those bonuses awarded across the city. They are difficult to achieve. This particular site, one of the reasons we've asked for the local development plan is to retain those trees on site. Because of the slope across the site, it may be difficult for them to retain the trees, have internal roadways, accommodate everything they need to on the site, whilst also achieving those bonuses. I don't think it's possible that they can achieve that with the current local development plan and retaining those trees, because they would have to clear all of those trees and do significant earthworks across the site. That's certainly something that the city has said to the Department of Communities from the start, that we want to retain as many trees as possible across this site. So while, yes, it is technically a theoretical maximum, we've always indicated that it would be around 150 across the site. That's the indication that we've been given from the Department of Communities.
You can appreciate that if a property developer, though, gets hold of this, I don't think trees would be at the forefront of their considerations. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard Kell. Thank you, and just your name and suburb.
Hi, Richard Kell from North Beach. Further on to Mr. Mark Brennan's question, North Beach Road at the intersection of Cromer is under the control of the maintenance of the City of Stirling. If the intersection is required to be upgraded and safely improved because of the impact of hundreds of vehicles and movements during peak hour generated by the Department of Communities and Development, why should the city and therefore its ratepayers pay for this? In other words, why should the city and therefore its ratepayers subsidise the Department of Communities?
Thank you. And look, whilst I understand your question, whether people are living in houses because it's a Department of Community house, whether they're renting a house or whether they own a house, it's the city's responsibility to utilise its municipal funds to upgrade road networks. But I understand your concern.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Now, I haven't got anyone else listed as North Beach, but in order to not separate them, if there is anyone else I've missed, if you'd like to raise your hand, you're welcome to come forward. No, I've got the other people who aren't with the North Beach questions. Yep. So, yes, if you'd like to come forward. I can't see who it is next.
G'day.
Yep.
Joe Abraham. I live on Edgefield Way, which is...
Thank you. I did have you down the bottom. Sorry. Yep.
Joe Abrahams. I live on Edgefield Way, which is one of the streets the new development is on. I guess I'll just start with a comment, if that's okay, that I'm not happy with any rezoning. And like many of my neighbours, we've invested heavily to live in an area that's got a certain feel to it, and any sort of rezoning is going to change that. And I really am uncomfortable with that. Commenting on some of the other things that have been said, just very quickly, that intersection, you said that you've had staff, people from the council come and drive the area. I hope it was during peak hour, and I hope it was trying to exit onto Reed Highway turning right, because it only takes, like they said, somebody who's particularly defensive to really block things up. And I can only imagine that getting a lot worse. To my question, and I apologise, I didn't come here planning to ask a question. I haven't been to one of these before, and I wasn't really ready, but when I saw the opportunity, I couldn't resist, and I feel it's relevant. It's about community consultation and the whole process. Specifically, I heard about some proposed changes to the West Coast Highway plan, talking about lowering the speed limits, maybe speed humps, I think some traffic lights. I put my concerns in. I didn't want change again. I put my concerns in, some of them safety related, and I saw a summary document come out that did a great job of summarising my concerns and the concerns of other people in the community. And it also very clearly stated that the majority of people did not want the change. And then it went to say that despite that, they were going to recommend going ahead with the proposal anyway. So my question is, what is the purpose of community consultation if you're not actually worrying about what the majority of the people living there want?
Thank you, Mr. Abrahams. Simon Wheeler, if you'd like to come forward.
Simon Wheeler, Scarborough. I hate to go off topic because you're on such a roll, but I just have one I want to get out of the way. Aaron, as understandably, the minutes of the meetings from 2011 are no longer available online for download. Will the City please confirm that the minutes of the Infrastructure and Community Development Committee of 1st of March 2011 on page 14 include the following officer comment in regard to the proposed boardwalk? This project can be expected to incur huge capital outlay together with ongoing resources for recurring costs. Construction of the boardwalk is likely to result in significant impacts to natural dune systems from which recovery and restoration would be difficult under the constraints of the coastal environment. If someone can please confirm that that was the...
Off the top of my head, I can't do that, obviously, Mr. Wheeler, but happy to
You don't remember that?
Happy to respond to you in writing to ensure you've got
it. Mayor, just...
I hope we can. I hope we can find it. Yeah.
What wasn't my question, but actually it was, and then I wasn't going to ask it because I knew the answer. The report for item 12.1 CF1 states in regard to Perth and Peel at 3.5 million that there are very few large underdeveloped sites within the city that can be developed to achieve this goal. And I was going to ask if the city requires this development to proceed to meet those targets. But then I realised, looking at previous minutes, that I've already asked that exact same question here in regard to the Karrinyup redevelopment, and the answer was no, and that the city already had enough future planned development in order to fulfil its density requirements under the scheme, which left me confused as to why this is used as a justification in the report. However, the director then seemed to give a slightly different answer, that if that could be clarified, if we actually need this density for the city to meet its density targets.
Thank you. Look, I think the intent is that it certainly aligns with the targets that are set by Perth to Peel. Do we need it right now? There's certainly enough planning if it was to happen somewhere else that it could happen somewhere else. And I think that's probably the comments we've said before. The city has strategic planning throughout the city that could accommodate Perth to Peel in the near future. At some stage in the long-term future, all these sites will be needed. Does that make it clearer or less clear?
Well, not really. The response before was that the Karrinyup redevelopment wasn't required to fulfil those density targets, and I suspect that's still the case here. So why is that used as a justification in the report put to councillors?
Obviously, council's determining an application that's come in as we have to do. Council hasn't made a determination on that. All vacant lots in the city will be expected to do their share of the lifting in future targets.
Right,
do we need it right now? No, it could go somewhere else, but the application we're dealing with isn't somewhere else, it's here.
Yeah, but those targets aren't a requirement, so it's, yeah, okay, thank you. Merowyn, the report talks about an orderly and proper planning process, while simultaneously noting that the TIS presented is for 114 or 150 dwellings, at the same time as conceding that the city does not know how many dwellings are to be proposed. It could be 114, it could be 150. With bonuses and granny flats, it could be 300. The director just mentioned that the most we can do is 270. But if you remember Karrinyup again, I hate to keep bringing you back there. The city strategic plan suggested 150 dwellings was appropriate for that site because it too lacked the infrastructure. So far, we're over 400 approved on that site. Okay. And you're all aware of that, and this council was strongly against that redevelopment. You did an absolutely excellent job. So, be nice to see that again, wouldn't it? But this report is asking councillors to rely instead on non-existent local development plans to regulate the impact of unknown density on the amenity of the area. This doesn't taste or smell like orderly and proper planning, Mayor Owen. But my question is, Despite the Supreme Court obiter comments, which somehow found their way into the report for this item, is the city aware of any occurrences where the specifics or intent of a local development plan or policy have been, after due regard, bypassed significantly by a development assessment panel or the WAPC? In other words, what confidence can councillors have that an LDP will provide for orderly and proper planning in this case? And noting that the R codes themselves seem to have little impact on development outcomes, is this not a case in regard to ratepayer amenity where less is more?
Thank you. I think I understand some of that question, Mr. Wheeler. Look, the simple answer is it's a system we're in, but I'll get Ms. Shears to provide comment.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I'm understanding your question correctly, Mr. Wheeler, in terms of the LDP requirement, there's 4 instances under our regulations where it can be required. This is one of them where the state and also the council agree that it is required. That is recommended to be, should council approve it or should the WAPC approve it, it is recommended to be a special condition of this rezoning that any LDP be provided. Yes, you're correct. Everything in our planning framework is due regard. Even our planning scheme is due regard if you're reading the regulations correctly. But some may argue that an LDP is lesser of regard in terms of its order in the regulations. In terms of that decision, that would be made by council if it was departing significantly from the local development plan. We do get instances where proposals do vary from local development plans from time to time. And again, that would be assessed on its merits. It would be weighed up in terms of whether or not those departures are justified from a planning point of view as well.
Well, I appreciate the answer. My question was, is the intent of LDPs quite often ignored by development assessment panels and WAPC?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can't answer that in terms of how many development assessment
I wasn't
panels.
asking how many. Are you aware of instances like that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm only aware of one instance where an LDP hasn't been given full regard by a development assessment panel, but there may be others, I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you very much.
Point taken. Thank you. Leisha Jack. Thank you. Name and suburb.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors, staff and members of the gallery. My name is Leisha Jack from Karrinyup. My first question. Australia does productivity very badly and we're getting worse. Productivity doesn't just mean getting workers to work harder and do more. It also means doing more with the assets and resources that we already have. It means not reinventing the wheel and creating whole new systems or constructing new things when what you already have could be refreshed, bolstered, or just promoted. Why would the city build a boardwalk between the Scarborough Foreshore Development Precinct and the massive South Trigg car park when all the tourism market research shows that tourists want nature and natural attractions and pristine natural coastlines? The Scarborough Foreshore is already highly developed with loads of concrete and man-made attractions. More man-made structures will reduce the environmental value of the land and the area as a tourist attraction. Would you agree, Mr. Mayor, that it would be more productive and fiscally responsible to promote the stunning natural assets around Scarborough and Trigg beaches rather than building more expensive, unnecessary infrastructure that would degrade those precious natural dunes?
Thank you for that question, Ms. Jack. Ultimately, the community will decide. It's out for some early community consultation, but as you're aware, council has money on this year's budget that will determine the environmental impacts and further consult with the community to see if it does progress.
$500,000 for a feasibility study. Yes.
No, it's for several
the
things.
council has approved, yes.
Yes.
Question 2. The state government has made it very clear that they want to do nothing. They want nothing to do with your trackless tram idea. They have a clear agenda to go with electric buses. The infrastructure is already in place, and buses are made by a family business in Malaga. It would be a more sustainable solution. If you want people to use public transport along Scarborough Beach to Glendalough train station, would it be more productive and fiscally responsible for the city to promote taking buses? The city could install creative bus shelters, as they have in other cities, for a start. You could have new electric buses, specially painted in cool designs, and customise some to accommodate bikes and surfboards. You could launch a promotional campaign to make catching buses cool. Has the city created an electric bus alternative plan for consideration?
No, and I think I've said this before, the city is certainly not in the business of public transport itself, so we won't be running, whether it be a trackless tram or an electric bus. The trackless tram is part of our land use planning solutions, much like any mid-tier transit. The city won't be running anything, and they won't be running in the near future down Scarborough Beach Road either way.
So what is this, the public promotions, what? It's never going to fly.
We'll see.
Well, yeah, we will.
But you're certainly entitled to your view, Ms. Jack.
Well, it's not just mine. Mr Mayor, number 3. Mr Mayor, were you involved with the decision to allow businessman Chris Ellison to fly his helicopter to and from his office in Osborne Park over the Herdsman Lake wetlands? And how often is he allowed to do it? And what environmental considerations were conducted prior to granting him permission?
Thank you. It's a lot more complicated than that. Yes, yes, I was involved. It's not my helicopter.
Were you involved with the decision?
Yes, but we don't give permission for helicopters to fly. We're not an aviation regulator, and we are not an environmental regulator. There are many agencies that should be involved. All we are is have care and control as the head owner of the ground there for the Pony Club. The only information we have proposed is that if the Pony Club don't have a problem with it landing, as a landowner, we don't have an issue with it landing, but we certainly don't provide permission for anyone to do aviation.
So the city, the newspaper was wrong. The Age and the WA Today were wrong. It wasn't the city.
That would be unusual, Miss Jack. As I said, look,
I'm just asking, were they wrong?
I haven't seen the articles, but we are certainly...
You haven't seen the
articles? I cannot be clearer.
Okay.
Planes do not ask us permission to fly. They go to CASA and other regulators. We are a local government. All we can do is let people do stuff on land. That's all we can do.
So you had nothing to do with it?
That's not what I said. I said, as a local government and the head landowner of the Pony Club, we said in principle, if the Pony Club doesn't have a problem with it landing on their land, we don't have a problem with it, but we don't give permission for it to fly through the air.
No environmental considerations for the wetland. Okay. Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Arnold Davies. Mr. Davies.
Arnold Davies, Curritup. Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors, staff and members of the gallery. What progress has been made by the City of Stirling to improve the lighting and public safety at the Francis Street or Francis Avenue entrance of the shopping centre at Curritup near Smith Street?
Has there been a request for something?
I put a question to you previously about it.
I'm looking around. We may have to respond to you in writing, Mr. Davies.
Thank you.
I'm not getting anyone jumping on the mic here.
What is the current situation regarding the 2015 motion which was passed by the council to redevelop the Curritup Library?
There is no current progress on that. I think at the time we talked about the role of council here as a landowner again for the community-owned library site. There has been no progress on that, and we have not been approached by the shopping centre. The last discussion we had was when the motion went on the table in more recent times to put an offer to Karrinyup Shopping Centre that if they wish to progress anything on those sites, that we enter into discussions, and there's been no discussions.
Thank you. What is the current situation with regards to the motion moved by the then Councillor Caddy several years ago for the redevelopment of the North Beach Community Centre?
Thank you. Mr. Quirk.
Through you, Mr Mayor, thanks for the question, Mr Davies. So the city has prepared a community infrastructure plan, so that has identified facility improvements, particularly through that North Beach area. So there's nothing on the 4-year program at the moment because of the recent investment in infrastructure at Charles Riley, but certainly that facility has been identified along with the facility at Mount Flora for consideration for development in coming years as population continues to grow through that area.
Thank you.
Thank you. Roland Hadley. Thank you. And your name and suburb?
Good evening, Roland Hadley, Woodlands. Ratepayers have inquired if this trackless tram project is proceeding, as they have not seen any mention in the West Australian, no local papers, and not even in the Mayor's monthly bulletin. If yes, and I quote your words, Mayor Irwin, when will we see 500 passengers arriving every 15 minutes at the international tourist destination of Scarborough? An embarrassing claim in many people's opinion. If no, what reasons are given, especially when so much hype, publicity attached to this trackless tram, never mind the 5 million of taxpayers' money spent on this project. Could you please advise?
Thank you for that. Look, if they haven't seen anything on it, they probably haven't been looking hard enough. I think it's been in the paper fairly recently. There is no plans to do anything in the near future. The City of Stirling ran the trial. There was a federal government business case.
Excuse me. When you say the near future, what do you mean by the near future?
The next stage will be that the business case is presented to the public.
Thank you. The long-awaited trackless tram report to be completed by the experts, which was to be ready in November 2023, then December 23, and now July 24, has not yet appeared. Why?
Thank you. Well, the nature of those are because there are so many independent agencies involved, we have limited control on the timelines, but we would expect that the peer review and those other processes will be completed shortly. I hope to see it as much as you do, Mr Hadley.
Quite so. Similarly, the council's business case supporting a trackless tram has now been deferred. We ask why.
I'm sorry, they're the same thing, I believe.
The same. So the trackless tram...
So we don't have a business case. It's an independent business case that will be presented by us.
And it has been deferred. So when are we expecting that? In next year sometime?
Hopefully this year, Mr Hadley.
Oh, good, thank you. Question 3. Why has the Mayor, Mark Irwin, refused to provide full details of expenditure relating to this trackless tram project, tram trial and symposium? On behalf of many ratepayers, we have sought this information since August 2023 on 4 separate occasions. In the minutes of the 11th of June, Mayor Irwin stated that he would provide written answers. This has not happened. Why?
Thank you. It's not for me to provide the written answers, but I understand that the administration have provided those responses to you, Mr Hadley.
The administration, as you well know, has not provided the details that we sought on 4 separate occasions. Tonight, we hope that the Minister of Local Government and also the Auditor General's Department are listening to your live streaming, and they might be calling here on Thursday morning, roughly between 10:15 to 10:30 to ask this information. Will they be given the information?
Thank you. I missed that last bit. They're going to ring us, are they?
No, they might be here in person. That's one question.
Thank you.
Well,
that's 4 questions, Mr. Hadley.
Well, through the chair, Mr. Irwin, can your deputy mayor provide this information? The information you have, why can't it be provided? Simple as that.
We are happy you've had the information provided, and we'll await their visit. Thank you. Now, that's all I have. Is there any members of the gallery? Yes, please, if you... I apologise if I missed a couple. You're welcome to come forward.
Apologies, sir. I didn't quite get my hand up fast enough at the end of the North Beach round. Trevor Goldsmith, North Beach. I wanted to know if, when considering the redevelopment, does council have to go to someone like Watercorp to see if there is sufficient infrastructure there? It's my understanding that the current water supply into the North Beach area is at or is approaching capacity. I know that the pipe work and so on into the area is quite old, and we find that the residents end up with tap water coming through with high quantities of calcium, for a start. Is council required to look at that when they consider the development application?
Yeah, so as part of these applications and the consultation, government agencies are all consulted. I'll get Ms Shears to provide comment on the process.
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, that's correct. Mr Goldsmith, we do liaise with other state departments. Watercorp advised that they had no capacity issues or any concerns with the proposal.
Information that I have from within Watercorp would contradict that. I'm a retired police officer, a detective, and I'm fortunate in that I have a number of excellent contacts within various government departments developed over the years. And from a source that does not wish to be named, there is an issue with the water supply into the area overall, and further growth may cause problems. Perhaps it might be an interest to go back and ask the question again.
We'll get our guy to talk to your guy.
Well, my guy doesn't want to let you know his name because he'd like to stay employed.
We might get your details before you leave, though. We might be able to use you.
I think I'm going to run away now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr Mitchell, I apologise. I've just looked back at my list. I have you in the middle. I've gone straight past you. While Mr Mitchell comes up, if anyone else has been missed, just when he finishes, I'll ask you to raise your hand and you're welcome to come up. Otherwise, we'll move on. While you're just getting ready, Mr Mitchell, can I just correct something I said? And this is for Mr Davies. The acting CEO has just informed me, I was unaware, officers have met with the Karrinyup Shopping Centre. There's been no decisions, but they had a preliminary discussion, and that was 2 weeks ago.
Good evening, Mayor. Robert Mitchell, Karrinyup. Good evening, councillors, council staff, and fellow people in the gallery. Mayor, tonight I ask in relation to the following questions and proposals. Now, these are projects that are underway or whatever. The first one is in relation to the adjacent courtyard, entry to council offices. This proposal to carry out planting of trees, create ornamental areas with a yarning area inclusive of lighting. What has transpired?
Not a lot, as you can see, Mr Mitchell. Mr Murphy.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for the question. The detailed design for the forecourt is currently underway, with works planned in 2025. So we anticipate that the project will be completed by August 2025. So the project is underway, but we're in the design phase and not started construction yet.
So when is this proposal that's been through the administration was sent out to a consultation When is it actually going to happen?
So the detailed design's done. When's the start date, Mr Murphy?
We anticipate it'll be later in 2025, and as I said, we again
Completion or start?
So I haven't got a start date, but I've got a completion date of August 2025.
I'll ring you when it starts.
Yeah,
Mitchell?
and it'll be pretty obvious out front when the work
All right,
starts.
I'll move on to the next one.
You can come and turn the sod with me. We'll do a shovel.
No, these are all in question one. These are about projects. The Karrinyup Library and Community Building. The surrounds is mentioned with some allocated to replace or renew courtyard paving cracked and broken. The courtyard paving that's cracked and broken was replacing old stuff there, and it wasn't there for, well, months. And some articulated vehicle drove over it. And Mayor, you told me that it was in last year's budget, it was going to be carried out.
I did.
It hasn't been.
I did, and I know, and I'll get Mr.
It hasn't been.
You are right.
And then there's $500,000 put aside, and an electric door's been put on, but the paving's not fixed. This whole matter of Karrinyup Community Centre and Library has been going on for years. And you say here you're awaiting a decision from either AMP or Uni Super, who, well, one owns the place and the other's advising them. And you just said tonight that you're still waiting. While you're waiting, all these years, there's been a facility there that has sat idle. It is council property and it has a profit to it. You've got a large area of parking. I consulted some car yards and I said, what do you reckon if you put in a display area on part of the Karrinyup shopping centre site? That would be great. You could lease it out, you could get a return on it, but no, you don't. Then we have the community centre, which has got a kitchen in it. It's got toilets. It's always locked up. Why haven't you, with the courtyard, put out and got someone in there and lease it out and get a return? You'd get a return from that. You'd get a return from the car park area. But no, you sit here and you wait for someone else to come up with an idea, and I know what it is. It's a 4-storey building with a library and a community centre supplied by them. Look, what we've got there now can be leased out for years because the Karrinyup shopping centre is not going to turn around tomorrow and build anything. What they're doing now, they've got to put up 2 more high-rises and then they've got to pull down North Court.
Thanks, Mr. Mitchell.
And I've told my grandchildren to tell their grandchildren that it may happen.
Yes.
Okay.
So there's 3, I'll quickly do 3 things though. You're right about the paving. It hasn't been done. Mr. Quirk, can you quickly explain why? And I agree that's not good enough.
Yes, Mr. Mitchell, so that funding was on the budget last year. I made the decision to put that on hold because we had an opportunity to put an activation on that site. We had a proposal from the eastern states to have something quite unique come to Karrinyup and come to Stirling. That was going to require a redesign of those works. So we put that on hold for that particular reason. Those funds have been carried over into this year's budget, and I expect those works will be done this financial year.
So this is going to roll on again.
Yep, and the
community
centre is utilised, and the library is utilised,
we get no
and the parking is for the
from
community.
it.
Now, your next question, because we
my
do have all these
next
people waiting, so I'll just...
Yeah. Yeah, my next question is in relation to following the council's failure to convince the Salary and Allowances Tribunal that a rise in the councillor's remuneration stipend, as you say, was warranted for the so-called, by you, Mayor, of the big four councils. Will you now concede local government reform as distinct from review of this present government? Approval was given to carry out reform and then a rescission of 15 to 17% reduction of the City of Stirling was for some reason stopped. Now it's warranted more than ever. The city started out as merely the Perth Roads Board. At the time, was called a donut council. It went right over the other right, was Belmont everywhere. It has reduced in size due to development and population increases. That's what we're talking about tonight. The need for operational efficiencies, more so than ever now, its time has come. The ratepayers, electors of the City of Stirling, don't wish to cop large rate rises to cater to a council that currently is dissatisfied with their want. It is patently obvious you councillors are not satisfied with the status quo. To devolve and expand where necessary, to give a level playing field to all cities and districts of local government is ongoing. Local government is not about loyalties and traditions, as has been proved over the years. So that was my second one. I ask you, Mayor, after that, is the council ever going to consider what was going to happen around about 10 years ago? Because the council is just galloping along, growing, and as I've said, you've got all these projects that you're putting off. You've got this one out here, which is a simple thing, 6 trees. Ridiculous.
Thank you for that question. And look, sometimes things are put off because, for example, that one certainly isn't one of our main priorities right now. The City of Stirling this year has a rate increase below 3%. It remains one of the most efficient and the lowest rating council in Western Australia. It's a state government decision whether any amalgamations or breakup of councils happen in the future. You've got a couple of state candidates sitting in the audience tonight. I'm sure they'll take up your charge ready for the election.
And the other last question is in relation to this. I can't believe it. This boardwalk at the greatest beach on earth, you know. Now, I inquire now into the latest matter regarding this regurgitated third or maybe fourth time. I don't know. Establishing a boardwalk between North Scarborough and South Trigg and the relevance now placed into the mix. Yeah, $500,000 for what? And you're haven't even gone to the public or anything about it. For what? No explanation of the sum used. Is it now to be equally shared between the pros and cons of this establishment of a boardwalk? Is it? Hey? No. Is it solely to lobby to change the conditions to an A-class reserve? What is it the council doesn't understand about the conditions of an A-class reserve? I mentioned here that instead of a boardwalk, why don't you put a natural path down in the dunes, put a playing area there, like they've got down at Scarborough, between Florida Beach and Melrose, where I've got a property. Brilliant. Grass, playing ground, barbecues. umbrellas, the whole lot. And the beach is about, well, less than 10 metres away. You know?
Is that your question, Mr. Mitchell?
What exactly does the council propose to this place, this monstrosity? Have elevations along the length been determined?
No.
What specifically is to be constructed? Or what is it to be constructed of? I can't imagine anyone specifically coming from anywhere to take in the very bland view of the ocean, probably being excited about the prospect of seeing some black triangular thing in the water.
You've probably got the wrong crowd here for that
only
statement.
young and old surfers getting the mediocre surf waves on offer.
Mr. Mitchell,
stop wasting finance on proposed.
Your point is taken that the funding is for environmental studies, which has been asked for previously with community concerns. The community have previously been consulted on this. The funding also includes further consultation on this, and it also includes planning, and it may include exactly what you're saying, a playground.
You're going to go for further consultation.
Thank you.
I just read out.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
What is it going to be constructed of?
I need to see if anyone else needs to ask a question. Then we've got a meeting we need to get on with, Mr. Mitchell. Thank you. Members of the gallery, is there anyone I've missed who would like? Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Brendan McCormack from 3 Munford Street, North Beach. Not actually listed, but just wanted to have a few follow-up questions. First question was to do with the canopy development by Stockland. We're using that as a reference as a successful similar development to what we're looking at in North Beach. And I just want to confirm, I believe that is limited to 2 stories. Is that correct?
Yes, Ms. Shears.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, there's a portion of the site next to the freeway which actually has 3 stories.
Cool. Okay. Thank you very much. Second one with the roads, we spoke about it before. The Cromer Way entry and exit, it's not just coming out of it, but actually coming into it when you come in from the North Beach shops is already particularly dangerous. I think it's dangerous not reassessing the traffic plan before going ahead with this. It's already quite a difficult area, so I just would ask that we consider that moving forward. Third question.
Thank you.
What do we propose for social housing percentages? I might have missed the memo, but I'll ask whilst I'm here.
Yeah, thanks. Ms. Shears.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you, Mr. Cormack. You didn't miss the memo. There wasn't a memo. The Department of Communities haven't indicated exact split. They have indicated that it will be a mix of social, affordable and private dwellings across this site. We don't know in terms of what that may look like in the future. For the city's assessment of the rezoning application, it doesn't matter in terms of that split. We look at the impact of the number of dwellings and things like that we've spoken about tonight.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If I have missed anyone, raise your hand clearly. There's still opportunity. Otherwise, yes?
Sorry, I did talk before, but I didn't give you a chance to comment. Just very quickly, Joe Abrahams again from North Beach. And my question might have sounded...
No, that's all right. And I remember I was just racking my brain because I remember it was good.
I just wanted to know something about the nuances of what are the pressures that you are under that would lead you to need to overrule the majority of the stakeholders.
And so it's a valid question. So consultation takes many forms, and this council obviously consults in many different ways. So sometimes consultation is about information to people. Sometimes it's to determine whether there's support or objection for something the council's making a ruling on, or with development applications, there's also a legislative process. That information is gathered. Sometimes it can be amalgamated into similar comments, those sort of things. But the raw data is generally seen in reports and is talked about with councillors. It does form part of their decision making, but it only forms part of their decision making. So obviously on top of that, they have to take on board all the commentary from the professional planners, the officers, take into consideration what their personal views are or what the communities maybe talk to them about, and what the applicant is looking for in that area, and put all those things together and try to make a decision, obviously under pressure from a community who should, and rightly so, be concerned about their local area and have input into it. So all those things come into it. Tonight you'll see people you'll be really happy with support it. You might see some who don't. but ultimately it's a collective decision of council which will make the difference. Does that help?
Yeah, to some extent. I think when the result comes in and it's not in accordance with the majority feeling, it'd be good to get a detailed understanding of what some of those other considerations were.
Yeah, sure.
Particularly this one, I think, has a big safety focus. Just while I've got the stadium, I'd like to say that I'm quite excited about the idea of some sort of path between Trigg and Scarborough that is off the road.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think we're getting there. Whew. That brings us to the end of public question time. I thank you all. While you're there, Mr. Brendan, yeah, if you, oh, it's turned off. There you go. It's already off. Yep. I do thank you all for your patience in listening to everyone and respecting everyone's viewpoints. They ask those questions. And thank you for the coordinated way in which you were able to come here and ask those questions. Well done. Item 8, applications for leave of absence. Councillor Ree has requested a leave of absence from the 30th of July 24 until the 5th of August 24 inclusive. Councillors, are there any other requests for leave of absence that haven't been received previously? If not, can I have a mover and a seconder to accept that leave of absence? Move Councillor Papard, secondly Councillor Hatton. And let's go a show of hands for those leave of absences. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 9 is confirmation of minutes. Councillors, can I have a mover and a seconder to accept the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on the 25th of June 2024. Deputy Mayor Migdale has moved that. Councillor Dudak has seconded, and a show of hands to accept those minutes. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. I will go, noting that you are all waiting, we just have a quick few announcements, and yours will be the first item up. We'll bring it forward, so it won't be too much longer now. But I will now go to announcements by the presiding member, and we'll start. I'll ask Deputy Mayor Migdale if you'd like to do your quick announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try to make them quick. Recently, we had the national awards for the trackless tram trial. I am very pleased to advise that at the Australian Council of Local Government dinner held at Parliament House in Canberra on Thursday, the 4th of July 2024, the City of Stirling's trackless tram trial was awarded the Productivity Through Infrastructure Award. The awards, which attracted 144 nominations and 12,000 votes, are an annual celebration of local government's achievements that are innovative, make a difference to their local communities, display excellence, and have outcomes which can be replicated across the country. The trackless tram trial was a huge success, delivering a fully operational tram in Stirling in November of last year. Including a net zero symposium and a community open day, it saw 1,200 residents, visitors and transport experts from across Perth, interstate and abroad experience the first trackless tram trial in Australia. This is a great achievement to be recognised for excellence by the federal government. I would like to thank the teams involved at the City of Stirling, as well as our partners in the trial, including ITSG, CRRC, Shanghai Electric and Curtin University for their hard work and commitment. I would also like to acknowledge the Manager of Strategy and Performance, Michelle Wilsoncroft, and her team for their strategic thinking and commitment to this project. Thank you so very much. And here is our award.
Thank you. Just go there.
And this one too, but you don't have to clap again. On Wednesday, the 3rd of July 2024, I collected on behalf of the City of Stirling the Mobile Muster Top Collector Award at the Australian Local Government Association National General Assembly in Canberra. The City was awarded the top collector for mobile muster in Western Australia for collecting 391 kilograms of mobile phone components, which is a huge achievement. I'd like to acknowledge the Manager of Waste and Fleet, Yvette Pimbley, and her team for all of their hard work and their commitment to this very worthy initiative. Thank you, team. Come on. And this is the award.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We're almost there. And I would like to just finish. I'm pleased to, I think it should be recognised tonight, so I'm pleased to advise that Councillor Stephanie Proud, JP, has been elected as a new chairperson for Mindarie Regional Council. Councillor Proud has served as a city representative on Mindarie Regional Council from October 12 to August 21 and was appointed again in November 23. The Mindarie Regional Council serves as a regional local government responsible for these include the cities of Stirling, Joondalup, Perth, Vincent and Wanneroo, as well as the towns of Cambridge and Victoria Park, covering approximately 1/3 of Perth's population, around 750,000 people. The Mindarie Regional Council manages approximately 180,000 tonnes of your residual waste annually for residents. On behalf of Council, I'd like to congratulate you, Councillor Proud, on this well-deserved appointment. Well done. Item 11, unresolved business from previous meetings. I have nil. Now to 12, reports and recommendations from committee. Councillors will now deal with items from the Planning and Development Committee held last week. There are only 2 items. Both of them have to be pulled out, or I'm assuming one's going to be pulled out. The other one does have to be pulled out. 12.1 CF1 has an alternative recommendation from Councillor Kristovich. So I will go first of all to 12.1 CF1. For those in the gallery, that's North Beach. And as committee chair, I'll ask Councillor Proud to move the committee recommendation.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. As I'm required to do as chair, I move the committee recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the committee recommendation this evening? If there's no seconder, that motion will lapse. So if the motion lapses, I will go straight to Councillor Kristovich for the alternative recommendation.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor, and thank you very much to all of the residents and ratepayers of the City of Stirling, particularly North Beach, who are here this evening.
It's not an election, councillor, so just a motion would be good.
Oh, okay. Well, the motion as shown on the board is that pursuant to Section 75 of the Planning and Development Act 2005, Council supports the local planning scheme number 3, amendment number 130 as shown in attachment 1 in a modified form by amending local planning scheme number 3 map to rezone the amendment area to an R40 density. And number 2, that authority be given to the Mayor and Chief Executive Officer to sign and affix common seal and local planning scheme number 3, amendment number 130 documents, and the amendment be referred to the Western Australian Planning Commission and the Minister for Planning for determination.
Thank you. Can I see if there's a seconder? Councillor Papard has seconded your motion. Is there any councillor opposed to this motion? Councillor Dudek? Thank you. You may continue, Councillor Kristovich, as mover of the motion.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Look, I'd like to go back and give a little bit of history in where all this came from, because as people would know, I've been involved within the North Beach community and this particular development going all the way back to 2008 when I was the state member for Careen. And this particular location, in terms of Department of Communities, probably took up 99% of my time on the Department of Communities, from a Department of Communities perspective, both in terms of dealing with the issues in the area, but also in terms of progressing to get the site redeveloped. And what I will say is that, you know, obviously this motion came to us from the Department of Communities about what they wanted to see developed in the site. The motion went to 2 Planning and Development Committee meetings. At the first planning meeting, we know that the community had a deputation. Unfortunately, the department didn't send anyone to deputise, so that we weren't able to ask the questions that we needed to ask. Obviously, because of that, we had to go back and ask further questions of the department, and we came back to a second meeting. Again, the community had a deputy there. Unfortunately, again, the department didn't send anybody along, so I wasn't able to ask all the questions I needed to ask, which weren't going to be directed to our planning department. It was specifically going to be directed to the Department of Communities and what they were doing in that particular location. And so that makes it very hard for us as a council to support something when the developer doesn't even want to show up to argue their case and tell us why we should be supporting that case. And it was important that when they wrote to us, they gave us a written deputation, and in that deputation, one of the things they stated was that the Department of Communities began engaging with the community on this project in 2017, and the development concept was published in 2019. And in that proposal, there was up to a maximum of 150 dwellings comprising of a mix of things. And it said the dwelling assumption was informed through a detailed site analysis. So back in 2019, they had a detailed site analysis, which indicated to them that up to 150 was the maximum that they'd want to be doing on that site. Now, I've got a document here that was produced in June 2019. Now, back in 2017, 18 and 19, the Department of Communities was engaging with the community. They were having consultation, they were having meetings, there was drawings, there was plans, there was pictures, there was a whole range of things that were put on the table. They were collectively discussing these issues with the community. And one of the things that they said in one of the documents there, they said that, this was in June 2019, they said the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage was unlikely to support the wholesale increase in density, right? So that means basically that you wouldn't see an R60 zoning across the entire site. The other thing they said was that mass modelling concepts have been prepared and we would like to seek further community feedback. They went on also then to say, we recognise that North Beach has become a high-value suburb and wish to provide high-end housing with access to a backyard. And they also then said there'll be a further community consultation session in June of 2019. So it's amazing that all the way back in 2019, there was consultation, there was meetings, there was plans, there was pictures, there was diagrams, Department of Housing people coming out and meeting with the community. And then after March 2021, new election, all of that disappeared. There's no plans, there's no documents, there's no information. And we get told by the Department of Communities in our latest summary to the City of Stirling that officers have since sought further clarification from the Department of Communities on this matter, who have confirmed that a detailed design for the site has not been undertaken and they do not have a maximum number of dwellings at this stage. So in 2024, we don't have a detailed design, we have no plans, we have nothing, but in 2019, we've done a site analysis. We have plans, we have pictures, we have an idea, we have a community that's been consulted, and then we're asked to make a decision on a one-page document called a local development plan, which just says R60 on it. That's it. So we've come all the way from talking to the community, consulting to the community, to the community finding out one morning when they wake up, there's a sign on the site that says, guess what? This is going to be an R60 site. And we haven't spoken to you, we haven't talked to you, we haven't consulted with you. We did, obviously, back in 2019, and we were all on the same page, we're all heading in the same direction, but all of a sudden, for some reason, and God knows why, that has changed. And that's where I think the community has been deceived by the fact that the Department of Housing Communities was talking to them, told them exactly what was going on and was consulting, and then all of a sudden stopped consulting, stopped talking to the community, wasn't interested in what they had to say. As a matter of fact, was ignoring their own analysis that they did that said it should be no more than 150 on the dwelling. We obviously know that this is an activity centre. We know that it's 1.3 kilometres from the North Beach shopping centre. It's not a major transport route. It's basically in the middle of suburbia. And one of the things I wanted to point out is that if we look at, for example, an activity centre within the City of Stirling, and I take the Carrinup Shopping Centre as a site, you know, massive development around the Carrinup Shopping Centre, billions of dollars. We've got 20-storey apartments that have been approved on that site by the state government, obviously. And across the road, immediately across the road from this massive high-rise and all of this massive development that's going on, you know what the zoning is on Burrow Street? It's R20. The zoning on Davenport Street is R30. The zoning on Francis Street is R30. So in the proper planning process, we talk about activity centres where there's a bus depot.
Councillor, you've got about 5 seconds left.
No problem.
Do you need an extension?
We need density there. And,
do you need an extension?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, I rule to extend.
So we've got sites where, you know, density is more appropriate and where it needs to be considered. Now, this is a location where the community is supportive of density. The community is supportive of proper planning. The community have been consulted back in 2019, were supportive of the process, were supportive of the department, and since then they've been shut out. Now, I don't think that's good planning and development. I don't think that's good consultation. I don't think that's good community spirit building. And it doesn't build trust. And at the same time, not only have they ignored the community, they've also ignored the councillors around this table. They didn't show up to the planning meeting where their own proposal was being put on 2 occasions. We had questions and they didn't want to show up and answer those questions. They were given that opportunity. So I think what they wanted originally back in 2019 is what this particular notice of motion will give them. And I have no problem in supporting the community to give the department what they asked for back in 2019. And I hope that everyone around this table will support that.
Thank you. And it was like he was back in Parliament, wasn't it? That was good. Councillor Papard, you seconded the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I don't want to labour on a lot of the points that my colleague has said, but I do wish to just, I guess, sum up where I've come to for this decision. And I've been to the site a number of times on some very rainy days in recent weeks. So it is a decent parcel of land right near North Beach Road, a lovely park across the road, other amenities like schools and shopping centres, and the land, certainly does have a lot of potential, Mr. Mayor. And I certainly do understand the arguments brought to council and the committee meeting, what was brought forward, and the need for urban landfill, urban infill, and understand in many levels under the rules it might actually comply, but we must get that balance right here for the community of North Beach, I believe. So the residents certainly have been through a lot over the years, and their attendance here, Mr. Mayor, is a testament to that. And when they had the previous dwellings there, it was certainly I guess emotionally charged decisions or concerns raised by the community. They're very impassioned by it, and I certainly understand that they very concerned about what happens in their neighbourhood. And it's not an easy decision for council, Mr. Mayor, weighing up the pros and the cons. But I'm too passionate about the North Beach community. So there are a couple of ultimately two reasons for me to support this alternative recommendation. Firstly, the community concerns. So through the deputation of Mr. Foley, representing a group of nearby residents, they accept that there will be a substantial number of dwellings making a significant imprint on their small pocket of North Beach. We can, I believe, here today, Mr. Mayor, send a message to the Department of Communities that this community and the council will not accept an oversized development that overly impinges on the community's amenities. And I have not sufficiently, we want to make sure that there is sufficient due regard to those roads and the traffic and the parks and the school and the like. Now, is it within the urban corridor or activity centre? These are other concerns the community have raised. So the city, through the council, has done the right thing and gone out to consultation. And a response from the residents has come that they are in fact not in favour of an R60 development, which has been confirmed to allow up to, as has been explained today, up to 271 dwellings in the parcel of land under the bonus considerations. So 94% of residents within a 200-metre radius, Mr. Mayor, are not in favour. So there these are the people that will obviously be directly affected, and these are the people that I'm backing tonight, Mr. Mayor. The second issue, the state government commitment, as explained by Councillor Krstičević, commitment to 150 dwellings. Now, when the wrecking ball came down to level the previous dwellings, and then plans for the future were considered in 2019 by the Department of Communities on what happens to this site, after the detailed site analysis, there was a commitment to have a maximum of 150 dwellings, Mr. Mayor. It was stated tonight that this area is medium density. In my view, the R40 code keeps within that maximum of 150, a medium density.
30 seconds.
271, Mr. Mayor, in my view, is more of a high density and is not acceptable, Mr. Mayor. So let's hold this state government to account on this and send a message that we, the council and the community, Mr. Mayor, want to limit the maximum number of dwellings. That is why this alternative motion must be considered. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
He doesn't need another. He doesn't need a second one. Don't encourage it. Councillor Dudek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I didn't speak on this item at the original at the committee meeting, but I did vote against it. I wasn't going to say anything tonight, but I'll make a brief point, seeing as I've opposed this. I don't think myself and Councillor Kristicevic are that far apart on this issue, and I also wanted to give my good friends a chance to speak. But also, I don't know that residents are fully supportive of an R40 zoning either, although admittedly it would be a better result than the original R60. I do believe that locals should have a say in what happens in their own community. We have gone out for community consultation on this issue as part of the report to council and sent letters to all owner-occupiers within a 200-metre radius from the site. From the responses received back, 91% were opposed to the development. I don't want to do what we did with Verge collections when they were removed in 2014. Shortly after a survey was conducted indicating 65% of people supported retaining the system. Now, as representatives, our job is to represent the community. Similar to my vote at committee, I won't be supporting the rezoning to R60 and I won't be supporting it to R40 either. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor, at least they're clapping everyone. Yeah. Councillor Migdale, Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. As council, it is our role to represent our residents to our highest and best ability and to reflect through our decision-making the wants and needs of the residents of our city. It's been made abundantly and overwhelmingly obvious that local residents do not want to see a huge, bulky, oversized development in their sleepy neighbourhood side street. They love where they live and want to protect the amenity they have strived to achieve. Over the past few years, there have been several developments in the city zoned R60 which have gained approval for 5 stories, having been given due regard. This site is surrounded by R30 zoned homes and R20 if you go further out, mostly 1 story with some double story. To approve R60 would see no graduation sympathetic to the current streetscape. This site is not only zoned not only is it not zoned a neighbourhood centre, it's not even neighbourhood centre adjacent. The traffic impact statement was originally based on 150 dwellings. Then it was redone based on 240 dwellings. Who knows what's next? 300 dwellings? 400? This is a site that is not located on a railway line, unlike Canopy by Stockland, which is 3 stories and next to the freeway where density belongs. Nor is it close to our $13 billion metro net or any rapid transport route. And I don't know about your respective areas, but many of my local suburban bus routes have been cancelled over the past few years. Within 200 metres of this site, over 94% of residents objected to a density increase from R30 to R60. The locals have spoken and have been heard. Lastly, it would be remiss of me not to state the reality of this item, which is, regardless of whether council support this amendment or not, it will now be assessed by officers at the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage. The DPLH will prepare a report with recommendations to be considered by the Statutory Planning Committee of WAPC and then make a recommendation to WAPC. They then make a recommendation to the Minister for Planning, Lands, Housing and Homelessness, who will have the final say. We know there is a housing crisis here in WA. We haven't been living under a rock. Some of us feel it more than others. And as a community, we want to be part of the solution. Make no mistake, we're good people. We want to do the right thing. What we don't want is high density flats in cul-de-sacs. There are far more appropriate sites for high density infill. I will support R40, though you've heard what I have to say.
Thank you. Councillors, is there anyone else? Councillor Proud and then Councillor Hatton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I was going to raise a whole pile of points, but with question time, those were pretty much covered. I'm now going to just summarise a number of very inconvenient facts. So we all understand there's a shortfall in housing. It's at crisis point, and that's not just WA, that's the whole of Australia. So in 2011, the state government gave each local government authority in WA housing targets to meet by 2050, as per the Perth and Peel 3.5 million by 2050 Metropolitan Regional Scheme. These are the figures that I want people to think of as we go forward. Stirling's target back then, we were given, was 60,330 additional dwellings to what we already had in 2011. Of that, approximately 9,000 have since been completed. So to meet the set target, by 2050, Stirling should be completing 1,783 new dwellings per year. Guess how many we've done in the calendar year of 23, last year? 306. We should be doing 1,783 every year. We did 306, were completed in the last year. So that leaves, doing the math, and you don't need a calculator, we've got another 51,000 dwellings to be installed in the city of Stirling across 30 suburbs by 2050 to cover the anticipated population increase in WA. So they're going to have to be met. They will be met by 2050, and thank the Lord I won't be around. So hands up, whose ward everybody wants to split up these 51,000. That's the inconvenient fact of where we're at, the crisis point that we're at, and what we're going to have to address, and it'll be more emphatic as the years go on. The state government will be harder, they will push through things, and we will see what we've seen tonight, as in a planning development that is just not on anybody's radar in local community. Totally get it. Remember those facts as we go forward. Thanks.
Thank you. And I'll ask Councillor Hatton. I've got you next. I do think it was a little unfair you didn't have a little clap. I think it was. Okay. Councillor Hatton.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. At planning, I want to declare that I did vote for this item to go through, but I'd like those here to understand that when we sometimes vote on something at planning, we have time to explore it further. I did at planning, and exploring further means we talk to a lot of people, our executive staff here at City Stirling. We research, we Google, we go through state documents, we talk to our colleagues, and we find out more about the issues, and that is what I've done. I did state at planning that I'm very concerned about the traffic, and I'm very concerned about traffic impact assessments in general, and particularly this one, which I believe is quite flawed, and I'll come back to that later. So I'll simply put it now that this proposed rezoning and potential high-density site, in my opinion, is ill-conceived essentially by state government. I'll explain that later. It's in the wrong place. It's detrimental and unfair on existing residents. It will put pressure on local roads and possibly pressure on local schools. I do acknowledge what I've heard tonight from the addresses from the public and residents, that they feel that they are a misled community. They feel they are misunderstood in the state by the state government entity, being the Department of Communities, and they feel that they have a lack of confidence in the traffic impact assessment. My sentiments are with you on those matters. So I want to take a bit of a different tact, maybe, and I hope I can deliver it in the right way that will give an example of why I am concerned at maybe a greater level. What we have here tonight in this decision-making process, we have a plot of land that has become available for housing development. It is a large land holding nestled amongst established houses. It's relatively new houses, high quality, and the established residents and ratepayers have built under a low-density premise for the future of themselves and their families, mainly single residential and 1- and 2-storey heights, essentially R30. What we have here tonight is us being the decision makers at this point of time, and that decision making has been prompted by the state government entity, Department of Communities, in wanting to increase density and height, potentially to 200, 250 dwellings and up to 3 stories or even 4 stories in height, potentially. What we have here tonight is, in my understanding, the state government plan for population growth with the Peel Perth 2030 beyond 250 being forced on local councils and making them have the pressures of decision making, as we're doing tonight. The Peel to Perth 2000 is for future growth, and it does identify housing developments that have the potential for the city to meet quotas, to meet their requirements. Like what happened with the state government over the past 12, 24 months and beyond has asked all councils to show and identify areas where they can increase growth and set the numbers for the growth within those councils. My understanding is the City of Stirling has those sites beyond this site and can do that. And that's very important to understand. So we look closely at this site. Yes, very well located, lovely area, close to the beach. It is an area, though, that really is not affordable housing. It will not be affordable housing. What we need to be looking to, in my opinion, is having zoning codes put into place, or zoning for the corridors and for the amenity of shopping centres and precincts where you can have terraced housing, for example, 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, public transport, the ability to get a meal when you've been working hard, for young families or young people to access. This site down here is not going to be an affordable site for young people. We have a responsibility in the city to provide sites for young people to live, work, have recreation and be intergenerational with their families. I doubt whether this site is going to do that, even at R60. So I would like to point back to the premise that we have of corridor development and building in precincts, for example, activity centres. There is a 25% buffer where we're allowed to choose sites as the City of Stirling. State government is supportive of that, where we can choose sites that we think are suitable. I say this site is not suitable for some of the reasons I've presented already. The focus, in my opinion, should be 1, less density and height in existing low residential sites, such as this one at R30. 2, more focus on providing affordable housing in corridors where amenity is high and it's suitable for young people getting into houses. There's a high statistic of parents who are now supporting young people in their houses for much longer periods of time. I'm one of those parents, but that's okay, I love it. 2 of them, actually. And 3, more focus on young people being able to afford housing. Again, this site, in my opinion, does not do any of that. Now, traffic. This Mr. Traffic, they call me. Okay, all right. Okay, let's get on with traffic. It is within 200 metres of the corner of the Hammersley ward. Well, let's just say, yeah, 200 metres from Careen Corner there. I live in Stirling, Balcatta, in the Hammersley ward, and I use that North Beach Road so often to visit family down in Sorrento, to go to the beach in summer. The traffic impact statement it's old. It's essentially old. It's not current. It's hypothetical based upon some digital outputs. It doesn't have the lived experience of the people. I've been down there several times.
Councillor, you're coming up to time. Are you going to
have an extension, please?
You may have a short extension, Councillor.
Thank you. Thank you for the short extension. And I've been caught out at Cromer turning left where it's not wide enough when a car's trying to turn right into North Beach Road, and you go up the curb to get out and you risk not having vision. Imagine the greater density at R60, what will happen there at Cromer. Yes, we need to look at infrastructure on the roads. Possibly that can be done. North Beach Road would have to be widened. The impact on the roundabout down the road, there's going to be impact on that. Travel times. The travel impact assessment talks about 35-second wait times. Gee, I get frustrated waiting 15, 20 seconds. And then there's the anxiety, the frustration of those wait times. People are nervous at those sort of intersections. I was nervous there too. Even on North Beach Road, when I was turning right into Cromer, not coming out of Cromer to turn left, a car had to go virtually up to the curb because it was scared to go around me, so it went up the curb because the road's not wide enough, essentially. There would have to be massive and major infrastructure changes. People at the moment who, there's only 3 arterial roads, basically 4 actually, Karrinyup Road going down to the ocean. In summer it's high traffic volumes. The North Beach Road coming off Reed, and then Parnell further up, and then, then before that there's Beach Road West. Beach Road West, you have to wait up to 4 minutes to get out of there at peak traffic times to turn right into Marmy and go down Reed. It's very, very dangerous, and fortunately it will be upgraded sometime in the future. Parnell's not too bad, but people coming out of Sorrento, Marmion, they don't use those there. They go basically up to North Beach Road and use the roundabout and go up to Reed Highway. Imagine the impact that it will have when you're trying to get out of Cromer with more traffic or that traffic going up there. So I just think that the traffic impact statement is not current, it's not valid, and it's very poorly done, and it's not the lived experience of people there. So for the reason of our economic development in the city, we should be doing better at choosing sites. For the welfare of younger generation getting into houses, we should be doing better. For the amenity of the people down there who expect to have low density, that's how they've built those beautiful places which are no more than 2 stories high at the moment. We should be doing better. Okay, there was something else. Yeah,
that was surely getting pretty close.
There was...
This is one time I might ask you to start clapping.
Okay, I'll finish there. Okay, thanks.
It was like the RAC traffic report for a while there, Councillor. It was very good. That was good debate. Councillors, is there any other indication? Councillor Giudice?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm not going to support the alternative recommendation. At the first committee meeting, I queried the question about the blanket R60 and whether there could be some more nuance. And I suppose the officers were presented with, comments from the Department of Communities stating that that's what they felt was necessary to deliver what they wanted, and they also provided an indicative LDP. I think there's got to be a balance between the R40 and the R60 somewhere. I'm not going to state where it should be, but I think clearly today Councillor Kristicevich has already articulated a process that Department of Communities went through in 2018 and 2019, and then for some reason went off record for a period of time, and has then left, I suppose, a blank space and come back with this blanket R60 without really any real appreciation, I suppose, what the community's comments have been. I mean, certainly we went through our consultation process. Clearly there was advice from the community that they didn't support it, but I think there is a balance somewhere. We can address the scale, we can address the intensity, and I think we can also address some of the impacts that the vehicles that will have on the arterial roads and the local roads. I know tonight, the decision, we'll be making a vote shortly, but it will be going, as Deputy Mayor mentioned, it will be going to the department. The department will be putting a recommendation up to the commission, and then ultimately will go to the minister. I would like, I suppose, the department to be taking on board the community's comments that we've heard tonight, also my fellow councillors as well, and see if we can find some nuance with this, with the coding. I don't think the blanket R60 is correct, and I will put it on the record that I did support it, because I do feel that the LDP process could address it, but there's just too many unknowns, and I think therefore I'm not going to be supporting the R40, but equally I do support the fact that we're not going forward with the R60 blanket coding either.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, are there any other indication? If I'll go to Councillor Kristovich for a short close.
Thank you very much. And look, I think it's important that for all the points we've heard today, but proper planning process to talk to the community, to engage the community, to make these processes inclusive. And as I said, in 2019, the Department of Communities was doing that, and the community was on board, and everybody could look and feel and see a plan of what the future looked like. And all of a sudden that disappeared, and there was nothing there for many years until a sign came up and said, this is what you're getting. So the department has lost its way, And we need to get them back on track, and they need to understand that they can't force the community and they can't force the council to make decisions without proper consultation, without fronting up and telling us what they want to do. And for that reason, I think we need to make sure that we support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, that closes debate. So the motion has, it's not the committee recommendation, remember everyone, just to reiterate. We now have a motion that's on the table from Councillor Kristovich, second to Councillor Papard. You're effectively now, in a modified form, amending the local planning scheme to rezone the amendment area to an R40, so I will put that to the vote. Thank you, and that motion is carried. So I know it's been said a few times tonight. I do want to, because I know some of you might leave and not hang around for the rest of the excitement of the meeting, but one of the things we will do from here, so reiterate that this will now be sent off, so it gets stamped, etc. It gets sent off to the Department of Lands and Heritage, so DPLH, the State Government Department, that will then provide an assessment and a recommendation onto the State Planning Committee, the SPC, who will then provide a recommendation to the West Australian Planning Committee, who will provide a recommendation to the Minister. They're normally required to do that in a period, maybe 60 days or so. I would expect that may not be followed. It could take longer. So this will still be a process, that this still won't get to that process in a number of months. What I can suggest is we will put a link onto the website that you can find fairly easily regarding this development. I suggest you keep on contact with that, but also we'll put a link on there where you can register your details. Obviously, there's community interest in this, and although we've got your details tonight, it may be missed. It's a chance for you to register with us, and our commitment is that we'll keep you informed during that process so you understand when things are going to be happening throughout this process. You won't see a building on that site for a few years yet, whatever happens. But I think it's important so you understand, you know, what is happening and where it's at, so you have the best opportunity to be prepared for those chances along the way. And the other bit of good news, I do have a meeting with Minister Carey tomorrow. I'll make sure he knows your concerns. Thank you again for your respect and your attendance tonight. Yeah, what we'll do is just have a short comfort break, councillors, just a couple of minutes, because I'm sure these members of the galleries, I'm surprised they don't want to hang around to hear about a couple of your motions and other things that might be happening, but anyway. Thank you, everyone, and welcome back to those viewers at home. Sorry about the inconvenience. We had a large gallery to clear. Welcome to those who've managed to stay behind. There is one more item on planning and development, but I will defer that to the end because we'll have to go behind closed doors as it was deferred to this meeting and will have to be possibly discussed. Confidential item. So we'll move on to item 13. Reports for consideration in accordance with section 4.24. And again, 13.1, things we're going behind closed doors, and that has to do with the Traffic Management Services interim panel. Will need to be behind closed doors. So I'll go to item 13.2, which is a 2024 WALGA Annual General Meeting and Annual Conference. Do I have someone move a motion? Councillor Proud, if you'd like to move.
I'll move the item with councillors Lagan and myself as the first two, and the deputies will need two hands.
So someone here, so Deputy Mayor Migdale, obviously ensuring that you will be at this meeting if you're putting...
Oh, I'm seconding.
No, so this is, sorry, we need names first. So who will be at the local government WALGA, the annual general meeting? On the 9th of October. Who is attending that? Councillor Dudek? No, we need names of people who will actually be there. I can put my name down, but if someone else isn't there, Councillor Kristovich?
If I might just clarify, Mr. Mayor, as a member of State Council, am I automatically a delegate at the AGM?
No. No? I don't believe so.
In the report it says the North Met delegates are not automatically, but I'm not sure if I am as a...
No, I don't believe you are. I think this council has to approve the delegates. So you can everyone attends. This is just to have the little voting tag and do the votes. So there's a motion on the table with those names on it. Is anyone got any concerns with that? If not, Councillor Migdale, the Deputy Mayor, has seconded that motion. So there's no one opposed. Let's keep it simple and we'll put that to the vote. Thank you, and that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 14 we will now move on to. 14.1 is proposed notice of motion.
Mr. Mayor, there's only 11. Is somebody missing? There you go. 12. Now you have.
Yeah. Thanks, councillor. Apologies. Yep. They all looked black to me. The eyesight's not going. It's getting worse every time. 14.1, Councillor Judici, your motion.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, my notice of motion, as described up there, is that the City investigates the most appropriate community and/or commercial uses for the southern building in the Inglewood Town Square, given this building has a significant proportion of vacant spaces that could achieve better activation of the town square and street and benefit the community with the uses that are needed in the precinct and provide the City a stronger commercial return.
Thank you. And that's seconded by Councillor Lagan. Is there anyone opposed to that? If not, I'll put that one to the vote. And I'll wait for number 12, and that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 14.2, proposed notice of motion. Councillor Dudek.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the original recommendation on page 92, that the City considers removing ongoing yearly fee associated with having the 240 litre red lid bin, which is $150 extra per year, and a 360 litre yellow lid bin, which is $20 extra per year from the 25-26 financial year onwards.
Councillor, can I just ask you to maybe change the wording? Because the way this reads, I understand when you put the motion up, but the way it reads, you just want us to consider it now, and there's no information. So do you want to change it so it says that a report comes back for the City to consider? I think it needs those words in it. I think, do you see the difference? So that the reason there was the alternate rec is that it's a report to come with information. Otherwise, we've got to vote on whether we want it to happen right now with no information, which we can do, but it probably is not great.
I would have liked for some information on the finances to come back in this report that we've received today, and I would have thought it would have been fairly simple exercise to do.
Yeah, but it's against the council policy that was decided by this council. And the reason for that is otherwise officers do a heap of work that this council may not even want officers to do.
Happy to
So,
take
so
that.
it can come back to the next council meeting.
Happy to take that advice, Mr. Mayor. If we can add in the wording for the suggested alt rec to come back.
So you want the
at
suggested
next-
alt rec?
Suggested alt rec, but adding at the next council
At the
meeting.
next council meeting.
So report to be presented at the next council meeting.
For the next council.
Thank you very much.
Same intent, but that way the information will come to us. Good. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Papard. Anyone opposed? I'll put that motion to the vote. Waiting for one. Councillor Ferranti. Thank you. That is unanimous. Thanks, councillors. Item 14.3, notice of motion. Councillor Dudek. Your next one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to move my notice of motion on page 95. Would you like me to read it out? I'll just say 95, that's on the screen. Report to be presented on the 25-26 budget for long-term financial plan for efficiencies.
Yep, regarding, and the intent of that is clear, and it's seconded by Councillor Proud. Is there anyone opposed to that? I'll put that one to the vote. That's unanimous. Item 14.4, notice of motion, Councillor Lagan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm happy to move the alternative, so long as the alternative includes within it, or the report, sorry, that comes in September of 2024, includes within it the element that was in my original recommendation that talks about having a human point of intervention. The reason that I originally put this notice of motion up is it is to mirror the federal government investigation into AI, which suggested that AI could generate AI that generates the data and not have any human input at all. So I'm seeking for there to be human input. So in that report that comes back, as long as it's explained to us how there is a human input in the workflow, whatever the data or whatever the AI is used for, whatever workflow, be it planning or anything else, that we can verify that it wasn't generated through AI for AI.
Yes, so that's been added in, and Ms Hawkins is here listening, so she'll ensure that it's taken into account. Councillor Ferrante, you're seconding that motion. Is there anyone opposed? If not, I'll put that motion. That is unanimous. Item 14.5, we have a notice of motion from our Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I read it out?
You sure can.
Thank you. Slight wording change. That council endorses the immediate removal of the dead veg tree at 97 House Crescent, Dinella. That's number one. And number two, that the city discontinues their practice of not removing dead trees for a minimum of 2 years and instead removes the dead tree, remediates the soil and plants a new tree as soon as possible. The city will still investigate instances of vandalism and prosecute where sufficient evidence is available. I so move.
I just have to, so like this other one, there's no information relating to any of these in terms of the city's practice. Are you?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, there is information in the agenda as to the city's practice. And as to the best of my knowledge, all councillors are aware that the current practice is...
Just checking you're happy. Yep.
Yes.
Because it was only limited information. Yep. Is anyone who's happy to second this? Councillor Lagan?
I've just got a question.
Sure. Is there anyone opposed? Councillor Proud? I will go Councillor Migdale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The reason why I moved this tonight is because it was brought to my attention, a particular tree was brought to my attention, though I do know of others, sorry, I'm just pulling my pant leg down, where a particular tree may or has been vandalised. That is a fact. A tree has been vandalised, it has died, and the city's response after not being able to gather enough evidence to charge anybody for this vandalism is to put a fence around this dying or dead tree and to leave it there with a sign saying the city does not tolerate vandalism to trees. Problem being, when there isn't enough evidence to know who's killed a tree, it's collective punishment. Everybody on the street pays. In this instance, this particular tree is 20 metres from a primary school. It is an extremely large tree that is completely dead, has been fenced off for 2 years, dropping bark on children walking to their primary school. It's a hazard, it's an eyesore and a nuisance. And it is sitting there warning people who have done no wrong. No, there is no evidence to show that anyone has done anything wrong, and yet everybody's paying for it by leaving this tree there, when what we could do was take the stance that, okay, this is terribly sad that someone would do this, and the city does punish to the full extent of the law vandalism against our trees. Though we're not going to take a stance of collective punishment, we are going to remove the tree, remediate the soil and replant a healthy tree. I just can't for the life of me understand why leaving it there for a period of 2 years beyond the life of a tree. To me, it's just a very sad and sorry state of affairs. I can't understand why we would take that position, and being told that we do what we've always done, it just doesn't cut the mustard for me. I am absolutely against vandalism towards trees or any living matter, any living being, of course, without saying that goes, but in this instance, it just doesn't make sense. We could have had by now a beautiful tree replanted, 2 years old, and starting to actively add to our canopy. So I feel that we should still investigate and prosecute. There is no question about that. But in this particular instance, this is an extremely large and dangerous dead tree. And again, I just don't see, there is no reason here. This is not reasonable behaviour on the part of the council. So I move this. Thank you.
Seconded, Councillor Lagan.
Yes, seconded. I had a question through you, Mr Mayor. The suggested alternative recommendation for me would have to be one of the strangest I've seen in a while. It says that a report be presented to the Community and Resource Committee meeting on the 3rd of September outlining the approach to manage city trees that have been poisoned. Don't we already have practices that manage city trees that have been poisoned?
But that's why it's saying it, because there is a policy around this. So by council...
I guess my question to you is, and I would mirror
Okay,
what
well, I was answering.
Deputy Mayor said, is why has it taken 2 years to come back with a report for a dead tree when we already have practices that tell us what to do? 2 years seems like an inordinate period of time.
They're not linked, Councillor. This is about the policy around how we deal with the trees.
Well, does it?
So it hasn't been asked to come back, but it is due to come back.
I'll ask a separate question. Does the alternative recommendation suggest that our policies are ineffective?
No, it's an option, because by council voting to discontinue the practice, you're going against the current policy. So the alternative recommendation was to say review the policy. But if council chooses not to, then either way it will trigger the policy to be reviewed, because it won't align to council's vote tonight on discontinuing.
Yeah, so, okay, look, my only commentary is I went out there on site, and really this is one of the best bits of artwork in the city. It's a monument to bad community behaviour. It's been sitting there for 2 years. We haven't found out who poisoned it. We're probably not going to. I support 100%. Take it down. All it's doing is saying, look at what bad people can do. We'll leave it here for 2 years. Why don't we just get on with putting a new tree in? Apparently the owners of the home or the residents have asked for that. I just think this is a long-winded way of going about replacing trees that have been damaged. Interestingly, I was down at that North Beach site, and on exiting out, I noticed the same red sign sitting in the natural bushland on the left-hand side. So this is not uncommon that we're having people killing foliage in the city. How come we're taking so long to deal with it?
I understand your debate, but I want to be really clear that we're not taking too long to deal with it. In cases like this, where acts of vandalism, there is a significant amount of proof. In this case, it was leading into it. The particular resident asked for it to be removed leading into it for many, many months or years. And then it ended up getting a series of holes drilled around it. Then the sign goes up and it is left there for a long period of time. But it's not about how long it takes to deal with it. During that time, evidence is gathered and those sort of things. But it's entirely up to council. If council wishes to discontinue, it's up to council. Councillor Proud.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I actually would consider this if it was for 1 year. Leaving the dead tree there for 1 year, not 2. However, I have a number of instances where what we do when we highly suspect or we know something's been vandalised, we tape the tree, we put signage there, this tree has been vandalised, and it's much the same as illegally dumped rubbish, although there's no 2-year period of leaving a dump rubbish on a verge. However, taping it up, and Mr. Mullins could back this up, and Parks, who's here? Andrew can back this.
They might not.
The big message is that when you tape a tree up, you put out, taped, vandalised tree with the signage. Letters also go out to close by residents. Have you seen anything? This has happened. Have you seen anything? To basically dob in the person, right? Now there has been successful prosecutions in my neck of the woods, and I can think of 2 in Doubleview suburb and 2 in Wembley Downs right now, that I could basically give you the address on a map of them, where it actually has borne fruit by leaving the tree there with the signage. Yes, it looks appalling. The whole idea is the big message that goes to everybody living next door, at the property, are driving past. The big message is they're getting watched. Our trees are so very valuable. This one is like expected 100 years extra life. I think I read that correctly. So illegally dumped rubbish is a bit of a different ball game because that's got no longevity to it. It's not a tree, it doesn't supply anything, and it just looks absolutely disgusting. And we pick that up, but we do leave it for maybe a week or 2, and it really peeves me. But there's a reason that our officers and that we have this policy to do exactly that. There's a strong message that goes to everybody else who are good guys. Everyone gets the message. Or if somebody's contemplating putting out their rubbish. But if anyone's contemplating killing a tree because it drives them crazy, it's in there, it takes up their view or whatever, this is a really strong message. And I would only concede if it was to be considered, I'd bring it back to 1 year, but that's all I would support. Thank you.
Yep. This is a tree, guys. Okay, I've got Councillor Ferranti first.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I have one that is a past tree that has passed away from, obviously the summer that we just had prior to this or the successive summers. It's still sitting there. There's no malicious damage. It's just dead. And no one's done anything about it. Instead, in the whole street, they planted some trees, 5 to a front verge, 5 trees. And some under a power line. So,
I understand you're making a point, but let's just keep on this item.
Yeah, well, I think it's a couple of things there.
Yeah, okay. And same with you, councillors. I'm happy to take your debates, but I don't want stories about this tree you once knew. Yep.
Mr. Mayor, it's a point of order there. I think I know it's still dead because I saw it yesterday.
No, I understand. It wasn't having a go at you. I can just see the looks on the faces over here. Councillor Hatton.
Yeah, I'll make it short, don't worry. It's not involving traffic. Now, there's a tree that I know up the... there is a tree up the road that's got the sign there. It's been poisoned just in Balcatta up here in my ward. And I was pretty fascinated to stop and read the sign because I hadn't seen one before, actually, to be honest. It's the first one I've seen about 3 months ago. Now, quite often these trees are probably poisoned by people who live nearby or adjacent. And quite often I think that's probably the case, but we have to find the evidence. So it's a good statement to anyone nearby that might have been involved in that. With this particular tree, 2 years for a large tree like that is really beyond belief. But it's about messaging. I think to have the tree as a statement and a message by a school is fantastic. I know you probably don't understand why I'm saying that, but school kids and families, young families, it's so impressionable for parents to describe to kids why that is there, and they get to understand that trees are protected and are very valuable. But a tree of that size near a school on an access path and being unsafe, I can't condone that. No way at all. And for 2 years, that is ridiculous. So I think we need to go back to this motion and have a really good look at it, because I just don't think that's sensible at all.
Thank you. Councillors, is there anyone else who wants to discuss this tree? Councillor Christovich.
Thank you very much. I have a relationship with many trees. However, I'm not going to talk about any of them. But what I will say is that if a tree is dead, irrespective of why it's dead, it should be removed. Now, if it's been killed and poisoned by someone, obviously we need to go through the process of prosecution, but the tree doesn't need to be left there. It should be removed basically when we decide that its life is over. In terms of our policy, maybe we'll just have a policy where we stick up a sign, a post with a sign saying, look, there was a tree here, its name was, and it's this age, and it got killed, and if anybody knows who killed it, please phone this number and dob it in. So we can still have some signage there or some evidence that there was a tree there. Or maybe put some sort of memorial there or something, I don't know. But ultimately, I don't see the point in leaving it there. I don't see the point in trying to punish people, the community around for that. I know in this case it's saying it's not a dangerous tree, but when a tree is dead, we don't know exactly where it's going to end up. So we should get rid of them straight away. It should happen everywhere, and we need a better way of dealing with punishing the culprits.
Are you guys serious?
Really like the debate, but I do need to...
I thought you were joking before. Councillor Papard, then I got Councillor Dudek.
I do need to leave in a moment.
Yes. Well, you sort of thought about that before you were trying to get a clap with 150 people in the... yeah.
Point of order.
Councillor Dudek. Yeah, Councillor Dudek.
No, I just want to point out the fact that we still have the green bulk waste verge collections and we don't have any verge collections for hard rubbish. So, as sympathetic as I am to this tree, there is a way we can get rid of it, and unfortunately, our residents don't have a way to get rid of their hard rubbish at the moment.
That's odd debate. Councillor Migdal, I think you should close debate.
I'm just closing debate, and I just want to say this. As a parent, I believe in positive reinforcement. That is my parenting style. In this instance, I also believe in positive reinforcement. Perhaps we could consider, when reviewing the tree policy, putting signs in the park saying, be kind to trees. If you see something, say something. If you see anyone damaging trees, it is an offence. Whatever the fine is, $50,000 fine. That is positive reinforcement of messaging. In this instance, it's harsh. It's collective punishment of everybody that walks down that street, and there are hundreds and hundreds of kids who go to the school within 50 metres of this tree. Goodness only knows if a branch didn't drop on one of the kids who goes to the school and the parent got angry and did whatever they did to the tree. The thing is this, there is no evidence to support who was responsible. So there is now punishment to the resident having this out the front of their home and all adjacent residents. This is a no-brainer. Let's sort this out and then we'll move on to redoing the tree policy. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. And so I will put this to vote, noting that whatever you vote tonight, the policy is coming back very shortly. I think it's due to come back in the next few weeks. So it would give you the chance, if you decide, for example, to discontinue this one, what you would like to see in place of that, those sort of things.
So, Mr Mayor, we're moving the alternative or
that... Councillor Migdal's been clear. It's to endorse the immediate removal of the dead tree and to discontinue that practice. I'll put that to the vote, councillors. And we have... That motion is carried. Yeah, you can determine that stuff later. You can have your signs, your wordings, all that some other time. Councillors, that brings us to the end of item 14. Well done. Item 15, notice of motion for consideration at the next meeting. Do you have any notice of motion you want to put on the record? Councillor Lagan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I don't know if the officers have got it. If they haven't, I can read it out.
If you just read it out and we'll put it up later.
that a report be presented to council outlining the impacts of amending the timing of the variable speed zone on Beaufort Street in Inglewood. So the 40km/h sign limit concludes at 7 p.m. each day. The reasoning is basically that after 7 p.m. there's really not enough traffic to be trying to slow down.
Thank you. Councillor Giudice.
I think I do have a notice of motion to move, proposed up. There we go. This is for the Mayor to write to the Minister of Planning Lands. I won't go through that. The Minister of Energy and Environment as well, the Minister for Health and Mental Health, and the members of Mirrabooka and Mount Lawley to request reconsideration of any lease or licence over the lot 821, house number 501, Alexander Drive, Mirrabooka, which was the application for the landfill and solid waste depot that was approved by the WA Planning Commission a couple of weeks ago, and that a commitment be made to remediate this site is consistent with its reservation being parks and recreation is a matter of urgency.
Can I just, I know there's been state boundary changes. Just before you, when you said member for Mirrabooka and member for Mount Lawley, because I would have thought it would have been Nollamara and Mirrabooka. I'm aware there may be boundary changes, but currently, wouldn't it be closer to?
Morley? Well, it's affecting residents.
No, it would be not Nollamara though. Like, wouldn't this be under Minister Amber J. Sanderson's?
Well, I would like it to go to the member of Mount Lawley.
Or Morley?
Maybe Morley, yes, Amber J.
Can I suggest maybe we put the relevant ministers, or the relevant members of the...
I know, but well, that's not the point. Well, yeah. Relevant members. I would like the Mount Lawley member to be included.
Including the irrelevant member of Mount Lawley?
Listen, we won't solve it tonight, but I just want to make sure we don't have a motion that isn't what we need. So just relevant members, including the member, and yep, the intent's there. Is there someone who would like to second that? The Deputy Mayor's happy to second that. Sorry, yep. I was on a roll. Well done. Deputy Mayor, though, you have one to raise? Yeah. Just read them. Microphone.
First one is that the tree outside of the exit door adjacent to the Astor Theatre on Walcott Street, Mount Lawley, be removed and, if possible, replanted at an appropriate location on Walcott Street, and the paving be reinstated. And the reason for this is, whilst the trees on Walcott Street are a welcome addition to softening the streetscape, in this instance the position of the tree interferes with the egress access to the side loading door to the theatre and could potentially block access for emergency vehicles. I so move.
Next one.
The next one is that a report be presented to council to consider options to modify or expand the dog park at Hamer Park, Mount Lawley, to cater specifically for small dogs and also for increased use of the park. And the reason for this is several dog owners have raised their concerns with their little oodly oodles that the facility does not cater for small dogs, and specifically the option to allow small dogs to exercise separately. The facility is well used, and it would be prudent to consider the options for expansion of the dog park. And last but not least, that a report on hydrozoning or mulching of city parks be presented to council by November 2024 to outline the reasoning behind this practice and identify ways council can ensure that expectations of residents in relation to public open space align with the city's processes. And the reason for this is the community is largely unaware of the groundwater restrictions or reasons behind removal of green space. In many instances, council is also unaware, and the removal of recreation space and replacement with mulch creates unsightly and unusable areas. Council wishes to lift the standards of reserves and apply a sensible approach to dry zoning that includes suitable planting to ensure grey mulch wastelands do not become the accepted norm.
Yes. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. There's no one left to clap. Can you give her a clap or something? Yeah, thanks. Is there any other notice of motions, Councillor? There's no other notice of motions. So I will go to item 16. We have nil for questions by members which due notice has been given, and I have no new business of an urgent nature. We now move on to matters behind closed doors. We do have 2 confidential items we must deal with this evening. So firstly, I'll ask for a move and a second to go behind closed doors. We've got Councillor Lagan and Councillor Papard. So show of hands just to move to go behind closed doors. That is unanimous. With that... that, it does bring us back into council and it brings us to the close of the meeting. Thank you all for your patience tonight. Some very good debate tonight as well, councillors. Welcome back to those viewers at home who we'll now say good night to. And we'll close the meeting at 9:21 p.m.